Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme, which is Pride Month. We're going to be checking out some LGBTQ plus artists all week, 2 videos a day, all 5 days for this week. Today we're going to be looking at some Sir Chloe. This is the second video for today. The song is called I Am the Dog, which comes off the album of the same name. This album came out in 2023. I am totally unaware of this artist, though. It's not even a case of, I've heard of them, but not their music. I've never heard of Sir Chloe before. So, I have no expectations. Let's dive in and see what's going on with I Am the Dog. Lots of bends and little dips.
Stones on my back. I didn't do well, but
There's also a really nice bit of contrast in the drum work, particularly with the snare, ghost notes versus accented hits. There's a very cool bit of reverb of the vocals on the outskirts of the song. I like that metallic clash.
Hand in her fist. Hard to describe something I'll never miss.
A bit of waviness in that last section alongside the bounciness of the guitar.
Your couch, gnashing teeth and open mouth. Shouldn't have clawed my own way out. Loving you's my only house.
So lots of compression on the drums during that fake out buildup. Like a detuned piano or organ. Very warm with these vocal layers. I love that. Yeah. It doesn't dip far enough down where my expectations are. It kind of sits a shelf above that.
Hard to describe something I'll never miss.
Yeah, so this is a very cool song. It's in the indie rock realm, a little bit of poppiness in the vocal delivery. What I really like about it is the story that it tells with its emotional resonances of all of these different sections. The verse with all of its bends and its light instrumentation, even the vocals end up sliding into pitches and out of pitches more often than just directly landing on one. It feels very lethargic. It's low energy. There's a lack of caring. It's, I don't have to hit the note perfectly. Just slide into it, slide out of it. It's just like whatever. It's drippy. It's I don't know, it's melting into a lawn chair is what it feels like to me. Everything is it's just so hot that it melts and drips and it's just like whatever, dude. It feels defeating. But it also feels melancholic. A lot of the guitar bends and that guitar tone specifically remind me of blues. And so it's somewhere between being defeated and being sad. And that's what I really get out of this first section, but it builds. We kind of bring the energy down, and then these distorted guitars come in and we have this massive crescendo of layers and volume that takes us to the chorus. Now the chorus is large, it's bombastic, there's a lot of layers, it fills up all the space. We no longer have this minimal amount of instruments. It is a massive sound in general. But we've also gotten rid of those slides and bends. Everything is very direct. You hit exactly what you need to hit. The drums are more engaged now than they were before. I forgot to bring this up, but we had this cool little syncopated idea between the bass kick and the snare in the verse, and a nice use of a ghost note versus an accent note within that pattern to create a bouncy melodic movement through this very rhythmic passage. But here it's the backbeat of a song. It's loud. It's not abrasive, but it's impactful. Every hit has impact here. This feels energetic. It feels driving. There's momentum to it. There's physicality. It takes up space. It says, I'm here. Listen to me. This is no longer a song that can barely get off of the chair. This is a song that's standing triumphant, demanding to be seen. And we got there not just through an immediacy of we were doing this, now we're doing that, and just kind of changing. It's the crescendo, it's the buildup, it's the layering. There was work done to get from one to the other. It didn't magically happen at a snap between beats. Then we go back though, back to the drippy bluesy stuff. Not much changed here on the second verse. We go into the buildup again, this time with heavy compression on the drums. You can particularly hear it on the accented snares. But we don't go to the chorus. We go to a third section of the song. It took me a second to figure out what was going on here. It certainly takes its time, not necessarily meandering, but much like the crescendo as the transition into the chorus, it needs to set the foundation to build from. And the foundation here is it's kind of simple and quiet and empty. Because once again, we have another crescendo, but this time instead of layering a bunch of instruments, we're layering voices. I don't know what's being said here, but a majority of this section is a very large vocal stack. It comes off to me as almost choir-esque, although most of the voices sound like the lead vocalist, so it may just be a lot of backtracking and double tracking and triple tracking and quadruple tracking just to get this massive stack of vocals. But where the verse was melancholic and defeated, and the chorus was a very abrasive, look at me, I am here, making a stance, making demands. This is more introspective, or at least it starts that way. And that's what I like about it. If the other two feel like an exterior representation, I mentioned that the first section felt like dripping and heat. This is a description of a place. The second is triumphant. It's about energy being pushed outwards. This feels like a representation of something inwards. And what I really like about it is it starts out a bit more introspective, but as we add more layers to it and the harmony becomes more defined, it also changes characteristics. And it shifts from being introspective to being warm and then hopeful. As if this was a home you could return to and feel comfortable within, no matter what was happening outside of that. As this continued to grow, though, it shifted rather quickly, almost uh, transformed across just a beat into a return to the chorus, a bit more of that outward boasting. I don't quite have an understanding of what this is supposed to mean, but I do find it really interesting that a majority of this song is about the external, from my perspective at least, and that this moment is about the internal and transforming it from just a place that you can be to a place that you want to be. And I really like that movement across the song. Maybe even at a certain point, the transference of the inward into the outward, going from the bridge to that final chorus, is supposed to be about taking that warmth and comfort and pushing it out into your environment. I don't know. This is just what the music's telling me. We'll get to some stuff in the lyrics and see if that supports anything that I've kind of read in the music here. But it's multifaceted, and I think it does a pretty good job of moving between these ideas in a believable way. Believable is probably the wrong word for it, but a natural-esque way. I know we have a harsh transition into the bridge, but I really feel like that's necessary because we are shifting perspective entirely. The song starts to build and then it feels like it gets scooped into itself, which again represents my feeling of coming inward. And then the transformation into the chorus isn't quite as smooth or as gradual as the verse into chorus gradual movement, but it does have a bit of that transformative element to it. It's not like we immediately stop one and go to the next. There's actually a little bit of crossover, and you kind of hear that blur together as we move from the bridge into that first beat of the chorus. It all feels connected despite being three totally different vibes and atmospheres, and I really enjoy that aspect about it. I think the last thing I want to bring up before we dive into the lyrics is just timbre choices throughout this. I know as a vocalist, you don't really get to choose your timbre. It just is what it is. But I think that this vocalist sounds great, and there's a nice metamorphosis of delivery where it's kind of a bit more lethargic and drained in the verse, but more physically present and projected in the chorus. And then there's even a bit of airiness in it in the bridge that helps sell that feeling of, warmth. Pairing that with the harmonies going on there. So there is some nice choices throughout that take their natural voice and develop it for these specific sections. The vocal sound beautiful though. It fits every section in here. The instruments on here are fantastic as well. I love the guitar tone, like I mentioned, especially in the verse. It's just that quintessential bluesy guitar tone. Perfect choice for this. Excellent. Love it. The drums are a bit dry in the verse, but they're larger, lots of reverb in the chorus. Excellent choice right there. I love that. Such a wonderful design and a attention to detail to ensure that these small little choices really lean in and exemplify what those sections are aiming for. Or, I mean, I guess in this case, I might be reading one way into the other. They sound great, exemplifying these situations that I've already determined are what the song is about. So, there's always that sort of confirmation bias going on in analysis as well, especially since I don't have authorial intent. I don't know what the song is about, just my interpretation of it. But a lot of the things I'm seeing with the instrumentation tend to line up with that as well. And I got to give praise where I think it's worthwhile. And the audio production on here is fantastic. There is one thing that I'm not too sure about, but does provide a little bit of foreshadowing, and that's the vocal harmony. Vocal, I don't know. In the verse, you can hear some vocals on the outside. They're sort of muddy, sort of hazy. They, I think, are singing exactly what the center vocals are, but they feel more textural than anything. You can't really make out what they're saying, and I would wager that if we found or had access to the stem of just this secondary vocal track, I don't think you'd be able to hear the lyrics from it. It really does feel like a foggy version of the core vocal line coming in the center. And I like it as a texture, but I don't know what it represents yet. Everything else is kind of clear to me. Great choices. This is a really neat textural choice that I don't yet see a thematic purpose for, and I'm kind of curious about it. Is it just that it sounds great? Maybe the mix was too empty here and just needed to fill it in. But maybe there's also a reason for it. I don't know. But it is something I picked up on in the verse that I'm still, I'm still mulling over it, trying to figure out if I can figure something else out about it. But yeah, production wise, composition, I mean, I'm sold on this. I'm gonna have to check out some more Sir Chloe because I enjoyed this. It hits a lot of right notes in the indie rock pop area. It's very catchy, but also has some depth to it. And some interesting thematic choices throughout. So that's where you're gonna get me, man. I love that point in the middle. It's not just stupid music. There's intellectual elements to it, but it is still on the catchier side of things. Let me hit some lyrics, and then we're gonna wrap this one up. All right. Well, we might as well just end the video here because as much as I had to say about the music, I have distinctly less to say about the lyrics. This goes right over my head, and I'm even more curious about the thematic elements to this entire song now, having read the lyrics. There's not a lot to it. We have the verse, we have the chorus, which apparently is, I gotta go listen to it again. Because I think what I thought the chorus was, I think is defined as the pre-chorus, but I don't know. That's the thing. But the two verses are the same. The choruses, the pre-choruses, they're both the same. The outro is the verse. So there's minor variations between them, but not a lot going on here lyrically. The verse says, head underwater, stones on my back. I didn't do well, but I still tried my best. So this is, drowning, right? Trying their best to get out of the water, but failing. It says, I didn't do well. They have stones on their back, keeping them down. The second verse says, head underwater, hand in a fist. Hard to describe something I'll never miss. Okay, so the feeling of drowning isn't something that you miss. Yeah, I get that. That makes sense to me. The outro is the same as the second verse. So we have themes of drowning here, feeling overwhelmed, maybe even anxiety, panic. The pre-chorus says, I am the dog under your couch, gnashing teeth and open mouth. Shouldn't have clawed my way out. Loving you is my favorite house. The second pre-chorus changes that to loving you is my only house, which I think is interesting. Favorite would imply that there's more than one. It's revealed later that this is the only house they have. The only place that they feel safe is being in love with this other person or being within this other person's love. But it also talks about them trying to get out, using everything they can, gnashing teeth, open mouth, clawing their ways out. It's not even that they compare themselves to a dog out in the open, jumping on couches, leaping on people. They're under the couch. They're hiding, possibly scared. The chorus after this simply states, I romanticize. Romanticize what? I don't know. Maybe it's open up to interpretation. Maybe it being vague is the purpose. Maybe they romanticize a lot of things. But the way that I read these three parts together is that being in a relationship with this person is both terrifying and comforting. It is where they feel the most at home, where they feel the most safe, but also a place that terrifies them, one that they need to feel on guard at all times and must escape from. I find that to be very interesting because it could represent two things. Either one, that this person is not in a strong mental state, where maybe this is, if we look at it, as a healthy relationship for them. And the healthiness is actually what keeps them on edge. Maybe they had a relationship with someone else, or maybe a parent, which was very loving at some times and abusive at others. And so when their partner shows them love, they fear that the abusive aspects will come soon after. But maybe this is an abusive relationship. Maybe that's why they feel they want to get out. But like a lot of people who are in abusive relationships, they tend to go back. Abusive relationships tend to have a very caring second part to them. And if you romanticize that, you can fall back into that relationship, knowing that the abuse is probably around the corner, but right now it's okay. And, the abuse tends to build the first couple of times. You just write it off. It's nothing. You know, even though people on the outside are like, dude, get out of the situation. This is terrible. These are your warning signs. This is the red flag. You can write them off. Love is a wonderful feeling that can blind us all to the wildest things. If roses are red, it's very easy when in love to view love as with ruby coated glasses. And at that point, the red flags just look like flags. And maybe that's the romanticized part. Trying to find the loving element in the fear, in the abuse. I don't know. It really depends, I think, on the other person who isn't presented here at all. I also think it's interesting that it doesn't say that your love is my favorite house, but that loving you is the narrator's favorite house, which implies a very one-directional relationship here. There's absolutely nothing in this story about what the other person does for or to the narrator. We don't get to see their side of even the relationship or their actions in it. But there's the bridge. It just repeats little do I over and over and over. Naturally, my mind went to little do I know. That seems to be the most common word that comes after those in my experience. And that could represent, the future. Little did I know what would happen. I keep coming back to this, but I don't know. But it's also, much like the I romanticize, vague and left open. Little do they what? I don't know. They definitely seem uncomfortable in this relationship, but continue to go back to it for reasons that they are not ready or don't want to put into words, to vocalize. They'll allude to them, sort of drift off as they start to talk about them, but won't actually say them. And so the song itself ends up being quite vague, but I think that the music captures some of this too. The verse being all melty is when she talks about being underwater, about drowning, about too much. To me, it feels like heat. It feels like, well, I mean, I don't know if y'all have felt a humid heat before, but being in Florida, I certainly have. And suffocating in the humidity while drowning in the heat is something that, I mean, those are very common descriptors for going outside in the summer around here. So I think that the heat and the water and the drowning all works well to me. It all paints this picture of being overwhelmed by something excessive. But I don't quite think that the chorus lines up too much. The large, bombastic, outward display of presence and demand to see oneself or to have one be seen. It is about gnashing your teeth with an open mouth and clawing your way out, though, which is a highly visceral description of physical actions, which that part of the song is very physical. Not quite what I was expecting, but I can see some parallels there. Little do I, though, being the warm, comforting, internalized part of the song, I don't have a read on. These are my thoughts, though. Sir Chloe's I Am the Dog. Let me know if you enjoyed this, if there was anything that stood out to you, anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on. Let me know if you have your own interpretation or opinion on this. Also, if you have seen any interviews from Sir Chloe who would explain what's going on in this track, I would love to get a little bit of that authorial intent. Just to kind of see how close I am, especially with the musical read, but I'm so curious about these lyrics. So yeah, put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.